We live in a world where all the things we face are of no news. That is to say, there is nothing new you're going through that someone hasn't gone through before, which means all our circumstances are answerable. So we ask, is there something bothering you that you need answers to? Situations you think you can be removed from? No sober motivations to get you started? This is why we bring you untold stories. Stories of men that have been hidden all this while. Together with our guests, we wish to let out the stories we know are similar to yours and showing ways they can be overcome. Log in to Facebook and YouTube every Thursday at 8 p.m. on Reality Lab TV as we delve proper into these stories we are certain can spur you up to full actualization. Discover yourself now. Reality Lab TV, your journey to self-discovery.
Everybody, and welcome to Reality Lab TV, and this is the Reality Lab talk show, and this is episode 4 of the Untold stories, where we bring in men and women to share profound truths about their life's event. And for tonight, we have another guest in our midst who I will share light in shortly. Stay glued.
We live in a world where all the things we face are of no news. That is to say, there is nothing new you're going through that someone hasn't gone through before, which means all our circumstances are answerable. So we ask, is there something bothering you that you need answers to? Situations you think you can be removed from? No sober motivations to get you started? This is why we bring you untold stories. Stories of men that have been hidden all this while. Together with our guests, we wish to let out the stories we know are similar to yours and showing ways they can be overcome. Log in to Facebook and YouTube every Thursday at 8 p.m. on Reality Lab TV as we delve proper into these stories we are certain can spur you up to full actualization. Discover yourself now. Reality Lab TV, your journey to self-discovery.
Everybody, this is the Reality Lab TV talk show, and this is episode 4 of Untold stories. If you are just joining us, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow and like us on Facebook. Today, our guest in our midst is no less a person but Mr. William Yande Conte. He was born in Cambia District, Kisaya. I believe we'll correct that statement if I am wrong. And he holds a degree in linguistics and law, courtesy of the University of Sierra Leone Fuabe College. And he is a fellow of the IFES Global Initiative. And he worked for Youth for Christ as a project coordinator. He was also a national director at Good Shepherd. And currently, he is the General Secretary or CEO of the Slefis Sierra Leone. Welcome to the show, Mr. William Yande Conte. It's a privilege to have you in our midst. You're welcome. You are welcome. It's a privilege that we have you here today. It's always a pleasure to have, people of impact and success in this platform to share to us and to the wider audience watching us right now, your story and your life's journey. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a very golden opportunity to talk about things that one would hardly think about.
Of course.
That is how far you've gone.
Thank you very much.
So I feel obliged to share the much I could remember as required by your content. Thank you.
All right. So tonight we want to talk on, want to drive your story through a topic called youthfulness. I believe that a lot of young people here will be interested in learning from the things you have underwent as a young person throughout your life. But before we go further in entering your personal story, I would want you to just give us few words of what you think is youthfulness?
Youthfulness in current times have had different definitions and different perspective into it. Some were defined by statutes in terms of age brackets. Some are defined by your ability to resonate with the young generation. So there I hear people say, I can be 50 years old, but I feel 13 years in terms of what I do. But my own perspective, and in the context of this discussion, I think youthfulness should be considered in the view of growing people with a brighter future and the decisions they have to make to get to where this bright future is.
Okay.
So that's how I want to define it, so that I set a baseline.
So I'll take your few last statements, the decisions you make for a brighter future. All right, so Mr. William Yande Conte, permit me to call you Yandi for today.
Feel free, enjoy. You can call me Yandi. Yandi has a very historic and important meaning.
We started by saying you were born in Cambia district. Is the place called Kisaya?
It's called Kasiri. It's a small village.
Oh my God, Kasiri.
Kasiri is found in a chiefdom called Samu. That was where I was born.
Okay.
But my mother came from Lunge here. There's a chiefdom called Lokamasaba chiefdom, apparently from a ruling house. My father came from Binkolo. I'm part of the Chief Duras contest, where you have some great politicians.
So that means you were born from a chieftaincy family, would I say?
Yes, for both ends. My father from a chieftaincy house.
You're a priest? You're a prince?
Well, I don't know. I just know that I came from these two backgrounds.
Okay.
And because I didn't apply for it, this is how God designed it. I'm always proud to say it, so that people know that whatever you have is what you have.
Okay. All right. So tell us a little bit about the Content family, your background, your siblings. How did you grow up? Were you in Cambia district for the rest of your childhood? How did it happen? Tell us your story.
First, my father was a big career person. Both a medical person at some point, then a politician at another point. So when he was a medical person, they were being transferred here and there. So he was transferred in Cambia, and then at that time, wherever he goes, he takes us as little as we were. That's why I attended several schools that I cannot even talk about now. And then we are born four of us, 2 boys, 2 girls.
Okay.
My younger brother is a medical doctor.
Are you the...
I'm the eldest.
Eldest, okay.
I'm the eldest. And then my mother never went to school. My mother was not educated, but my mother believed in education. And my mother was just a subsistence farmer, a gardener, and a petty trader, who I still remember going to her backyard, pluck her vegetables, go to the market, sell, buy food stuff to come and eat. And I still remember her telling me repeatedly up to this point that the book were not learned, now they can't learn them for me. And she passed away in 2018. So, but my father was educated. Okay. And what amazed me was how an educated man was able to live with an uneducated woman and producing educated children.
Wow.
That's a combination that I find very amazing. My mother never had any formal English education, but my mother believed in education. I don't know how he got that passion. Amazing. Yes.
I think God will tell us that. So how was your childhood life? How was it like? Were you the stubborn type of person, or as an elder, as the oldest, right?
The oldest, yes.
Among your siblings. How did it look like? I've heard people say it's a pressure to be her older child. How did it look like?
First, I grew up in a village setting, not like a modern urban city like Freetown, where everything seems organized, you know. And I know I'm an adventurous person, and I hear my mother telling me that I gave her a lot of headache. You know, I asked too many questions when I was young. I make too many statements, too many comments. I'm so curious to know. I'm a friendly person, and I can be naughty at some point and all this kind of thing. And so that's one. Another part also is our growing up setting was different. At that time, you can have a parent, but you have too many other parents. Okay. The community is part of your parenting. The school you go is part of your parenting. So there were times your mother's friend is your mother. So I'm always scared to do things in her presence, because she can do 2 things. Either flog me there and then,
Go tell you.
or come and tell my mom, or maybe start flogging from there and bring you home again and tell your mom and be flogged again. And I also remember starting school there, our communal school. You have to walk like a mile or so to the school.
Well, what was the school?
No, it's called KDEC, Kasiri.
Okay.
You know, no motorbikes as a form of transportation, no kekes, no taxis, and the teachers require you to be at the assembly at 8 o'clock. And if you are late, no mercy, you're going to be flogged. So I always have to wake in the morning, rain or shine, I go to school and I have to be there on time. If I run out of luck, I go late, I must be ready. And in those days, there are not much human rights education about securing. We are told that they are beating us for our own good. And I'm really happy that I was flogged. Because most of the teachers who taught me and flogged me this kind of beatings, today, in terms of status, life-wise, things I've done, where I've been, they have never been there. So I saw those moments now, then now as a true investment, and I value those precious moments. We play in the sand. I used to love football, but in our days, football was meant for dropouts. My father used to flog me that anybody that play football cannot be educated.
So
not like that. So
were you good in football?
Yes, I used to be. In fact, community teams used to come and ask my father's permission to take me to villages to play competitions and all. Probably I would have developed a good football career. But my father's thinking at the time, and which I respect him so much, my father is the first prophet that's ever lived in my life. He told me two things. He said the only thing he could give to me is education. And he said education would give me a wife, education would give me a car, education would give me everything I need. And I have lived to see that testimony.
Wow, wow, wow. Education will give you a wife, a car, and you have lived to see that testimony. That's a great statement. So I want you to take us through your academic journey. How long did you school back at Kasiri? I want to get
for long years. Kasiri.
Oh,
it's a precious village. I love that place. I love it. It's about land and sea. The other part of the village, you have some good stream, the ocean there. Unfortunately, I don't know how to swim because my father instilled so much fear in me that there are big fishes in the water that if you go there, that's why even a swimming pool, I'm very skeptical whether I will get in there or not. Because my father told me that there are big fish that will swallow you. And I come to realize when I grow old that the idea is many of our young boys at the time stray into those rivers and some drown. So to prevent me going there is to build some sort of phobia in me. So I closed that chapter. Now, in my schooling, there is a primary school. I school up to class 6. Now you have preps. In our days we have class. Unfortunately, I didn't spend 6 years in primary school. I spent 5 years because I had double promotion. I was class 2 straight to class 4.
So you are this intelligent type person?
Well, I don't know. I just know that I'm a diligent person, hardworking. And I remember in our primary school we have a book called Palamba Demba. It's about 15 to 25 pages. I memorized the whole book.
Wow.
So I was like a reference point when I'm in class with my colleagues. When we talk about drama, I also did some drama, poetry.
So do you still remember the passages in that book?
I can't remember.
I still remember there was a chief in a village and he was called
Palamba Demba. So the only thing is, and at that time it was a fascinating and an amazing experience. When you have to lead your colleagues. In fact, colleagues come to my house to tell them the story so that they can find a way to understand the book itself. So I took my NPSC exams in 1992 and we're the first batch that started at 6334 in 1993.
I think after the NPRC was it?
Yes. The NPRC took over in 1992. In fact, I was a primary school pupil at the time. We were asked to march past to celebrate that victory. I don't even know what was the victory anyway. So but I was in the queue with my green and khaki uniform and then matching and all this kind of thing. And then the school dressing was not as formal as it is now. We wear plastic stilettos, go to school with socks, all manner of colors, no color specifications. And I miss those times. So the secondary school, there was a mission school called Baptist Convention Sierra Leone. They have a secondary school there called the Samu Baptist Secondary School. So I was enrolled at JSS1 and I was the youngest in the class and they used to call me Small Monkey because I was young.
Stealing.
Yes, in the same village. So until I took Beke in 1996 and that was when there was no senior school because 634 called for GSS and senior school. So my father brought me to Freetown to one friend.
That means you were the first set that sat to the Beke exams.
So we came in 1996 after taking the Beke and I passed. You know, because at that time my whole life is book, food. That's what I know. You know, I don't know what you call jam or picnic or jump. You know, so these things we don't have. Excuse me. We don't have prize giving, Thanksgiving that I see in schools in Freetown, and it was a new experience for me when I came to Freetown in 1996. But when we came in 1996, after the Becker results came out and I passed, the friend that my father sent me to enrolled me at Ahmadiyya School. 1997, AFRC came.
Ahmadiyya at Ferry Junction?
Ferry Junction.
Wow.
I was living at Dove Court.
Wow.
Dove Court is a whole chapter also for me. There is a school called Laura Dove School there, and the man I was living with stays downstairs, and there was a school on the top floor, no windows and all. So the guy never had enough accommodation for me to stay, like a room to stay, and then so I was sleeping in the open.
So you decided you were the decision maker to come to Freetown?
No, my father was looking for a way to continue education because I have sat to the Becker with the highest that was available at the village where I was at the time, and I needed to proceed to go for SS1, 2, and 3. So I have to come to Freetown, and that's why he knew someone. So that's why I came to Freetown, and I went to Ahmadiyya.
All right. So that was where you schooled for the next. It was 3 years, right?
No. I was there. 1997, AFRC came. There was an interregnum. The schools were disturbed, and I ran away. I went to my father in the village. We went to Guinea and were there for some time until we came back to Sierra Leone in 2001. Okay. Because the war was over, I suppose, in that area. Even in Freetown, there were relative peace now. But my father was so careful that he does not want to expose us to the risk of coming just because for coming's sake and get caught again. So I returned to Freetown in 2000, and we were living in another place in Podloko district called Babara for a few months. And my father eventually brought me to Freetown. I stayed with my other uncle, who was unfortunately executed by the 24 accused in the 1996 trial of the then government. And so I got to enroll at Rokel School now. And that's where I did my SS1,
Rokel School at
Tower Hill.
All right.
So I have too many schools.
Yeah. So that was where you continued out to.
And I sat. I was there SS1, 2, and 3. I went there SS1 in 2001. I became class prefect. SS2 class prefect. SS3 I became head boy and class prefect. And then I took the exam in 2004. And then there were these mass leakage or exam malpractices, and there's a lot of seizure of results and thereabout, and I fell victim. But the principal at the time, I am so grateful to this guy, Mr. Sisi. I don't know where he is now because he left the school.
That was Rokel.
Yes. And he called me and said, "You have much more than what you have delivered in these exams. Come back and take these exams and don't pay anything." And at that time, during 2004, my father died. So I had 2 trauma. And one of the things I wanted to do for my father, since he died before I took the exam, I wanted to pass the exams so that the results would be a memorial to him, that he's always wanting me to be this educated person. But he passed away. So at that time there was a crisis, my father gone, and the way we are grown up, it's just mommy and daddy. We have uncles, we don't know them, we don't go to them. So the struggle begins on how do you now navigate in a city where you know less people and yet you want to succeed.
So how did you manage that particular time you had? I believe you're in school, and school is a own institution of bad and good influences.
Yes.
So how did you manage being in an institution trying to succeed in, it was WAS by then, right?
Yes,
WAS examination, and you lost your dad. How was that manageable?
It was a tough decision. First, when my father died, because my father, we used to go to him every weekend. He would give us lunch money to keep in our pocket or keep it for the whole week. Unfortunately for me, the Sunday I was supposed to go, somebody came from him and he sent the money with a message that don't bother to come. We'll see next week. So he died before I could see him again. So I had that shock that I couldn't see him before he died. The second part, I'm just like a man in the ocean. Don't know what to do. But one thing I never lost sight of is my hope and the future that I see, because my parents helped me paint a future of my life. So there was no tangible evidence to lay hands on it, but I believed it was there. Because by then the president of Liberia was Samuel Doe. My mother used to call me Doe, my own president. So as a small boy, I began to feel like president. So So I had this desire that I have to lead people, and in leading people I have to be careful, and that's helped me to choose the friends I meet with. In those schools, there are people who smoke, there are people who run away from school, there are people who jump the fences, there are people who confront teachers, and there are these superstar guys, the guys who dress well, and they're going with the best ladies. We are not the choicest. So we are left behind. The only thing that bring people to us was our intelligence. And I spend more time to read because I had less distraction.
Okay.
I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't go to club, I don't know how even to dance, to date. So the only thing I know is reading books, thinking.
So how was it then after you lost your dad? You came back to see the examination.
Yes, I was going to come back in 2005 to repeat and take the exams. So I spoke to a friend. I was in a group of 4. By then I was not saved.
Okay.
Then my father was Christian, I was going to church. My mother was Muslim, I was going to mosque.
Wow.
Yes, so I wonder how God balanced that transition. I was here at the same time. Very amazing experience. And I was in a group of people that we met who are friends, because I used to participate in L&D's quiz competition, and I used to win. I used to be a very good speaker and all this kind of. I don't know how good I am now, but I used to be. So these friends, and they're all superstars with women and all this kind of thing. In fact, amazingly, there are people who are figures now, minister, and now in this present government who are my colleagues. I can't mention their name because I did sought their attention to mention their names here. So what happened was, between the 2004, when I was preparing to go and take the exams again, that was when I got saved.
Okay. So how did it happen?
It's amazing. 3 out of the 6 friends I had died some kind of mysterious way, one at a time. I mean,
before the exams?
No, after taking it, my father is dead. I failed the exams. I'm planning to take the exam again, and my friends are dying again, one at a time.
That was it before you took the exam for the second time?
Yes, before I get back to school.
Okay.
So when, of course, they're my friends. You will cry, you go for their burial. But I realize each time I go for each of their burials, I will hear a question in my mind. If I die now, where would I be? And that question, whenever it comes to my mind, guilt takes over my life. The third one, I was working, I was living in Mauritania, from Mauritania Junction. By that time, the road was good, but not much at Okada. So I was walking the road. It's a broad daylight, coming from a funeral service around 3:30, 4 o'clock. And I was walking, and I hear a voice calling my name exactly, William. If you die now, where would you be? And I turned, I saw no one. And I get home. I realized that thing sink my spirit too hard. And I was unable to eat. If I went to bed early. I went to bed by 6 p.m. And I remember saying these words, Lord, here is my life. If there's anything you want to do with me, help me. I don't know, I slept off. And I saw in a dream, and I still remember that dream today. I written an article about it once. That was on top of a high tree. All the trees, leaves and the branches are withered. And there were very scary animals beneath the tree who were finding their way to come and finish me up on top of the tree. And I saw a white image in front of me, and the image telling me, if you call the name Jesus, those animals will go away. So as I pronounced Jesus, I saw fire coming out of my mouth, destroy all these animals. And I woke up, and the prayer I said, before somebody told me that was a prayer. So what I said was, God, take ownership of my life.
Wow.
At that time, it was around June, July. In August, there was a missionary who came to Sierra Leone. He was interested in discipling people. It's a real lifetime experience where he is not only teaching me what is the word of God, but also leading me by example. So he had this consistent 4 years experience with me. I was even living with him.
So that's
the turnaround. So when I came now to take the exams, if he helped me to also pay for private exam, because I was skeptical that there will be another leakage in 2005 and my result ceased again. So I went for 2 exams. So he paid for one and the school offered me one. And I took both exams and I came with distinction.
Oh, wow. That was great. That was good. So within 2005 to 2008, you started your WAS, 2 different WAS because of your skepticality, and you got distinction. And during that period, you gave your life to Christ.
Yes.
And you are discipled by this.
For 4 years.
Wow. So how was the transition then from being now a born again, taking your WAS and you're already passed, into entering to university? How did that happen?
First of all, there was a paradigm shift. Before, my excellence in school was hard work. Now, I didn't have name for it, but now I can call it grace because of my growth and experience. But now I realize my little effort gives me more dividend. Before I can sit for 6 hours and I cover this much, but I can sit for 1 hour and I cover this much. That's one thing. Two, I also realized that some of my friends are leaving me. I become boring for them. That is another transition, and it was painful because these are people who we talk, and they always call me George Bush. They call me all manner of name, George Bush, all manner of name, because they just think that I have something to offer. In fact, one of them once told me that whenever I open my mouth, he wants to listen. So imagine these people leaving you. And then I have girlfriends. We're talking about youthfulness. I have so many girlfriends.
So that happened after you gave your life to Christ?
Yes.
You still had girlfriends?
Yes.
So how did... I want to understand.
No, I had girlfriends before I got saved.
Before you got saved.
So now my approach is, how do I get rid of these girlfriends?
Okay.
Because the first book this guy, the disciple gave me, was a book called Purity. And that book, just a small pamphlet, talks about sexual impurity, the impact, how God will destroy. I know this young believer, so passionate, so strong.
So,
and I had strings of girlfriends.
In our generation is full of young people who believe that we should live our life, enjoy it. There is a scripture in one of Solomon's book, Ecclesiastes, that tells young people to
do whatever
you want to do with your body. Yet he gave us a string that said you give account. Yet young people are saying that I am very young, I don't know when I'll die, YOLO, you only live once, and they live all sort of like, and you're a testament of this. How did you manage? What was your experience back then, having a lot of ladies, and you're giving your life to Christ now? How did you manage that? Was it difficult for you to let go? How was it after reading that book? Because I know it's a different side of reading and doing.
First of all, the thing I would recommend from the get-go, have a mentor. The transition to leave evil for good practices, if you don't have somebody to stand behind your back, to spur you up, to encourage you, to make you feel that you're taking the right decision, it is always difficult. On my own, I cannot do it. In fact, that old man prayed with me, encouraged me, and teach me how to do it. So I remember walking to one of my girlfriends, she's late now, and she got saved before she died. When I told her that I can't have sexual immorality with you anymore, and she asked why, I said because God is against it. And he said, which God? I said, the God of heaven. I said, where did you discover this? I said, from the Bible. Show me the scripture. And that was when I knew 1 Corinthians chapter 6 verse 20. Don't you know that you are the temple of God, where God dwells? Every other sin that a man commits is outside the body, but sexual immorality commits in the body, and God will destroy both temple. And that lady was very furious. Because I knew she was engrossed in me. And in those days, we had these films, we were making commitments. You are my future wife, I will marry you. You have this beautiful heaven and earth plans you share with these young ladies. And ladies love to hear plans. But I have to take that decision.
Okay. So was it pleasant
No, it was a painful thing to cut something that you love. I mean, sin is pleasurable.
Of course.
And you have to break it. But the better alternative is peace. What I realized while I was living in that state, I didn't have the confidence of what my life would be at any time if death should visit me. And I knew at that time death was just my doormate next door to me. And I can't help it. But what helped me conquer myself in that situation? One is prayer, two, wise counsel, three is the better alternative that, look, I am not doing it and I feel at peace with myself. And let me tell you this, internal peace is so important that no resources, no money can buy it. I remember when I was going to the mosque, they have this place called Janaba wash. They wash a kind of way to show that you wash yourself from the fornication you have done. But I still remember I had guilt in the mosque. I still remember when I pray, I still doubt whether God hears. But when I met Jesus in 2004, I realized that there was total peace of no gift of any sort. And that also contributed to my academic excellence. Knowing that I have nothing to worry about. I'm a free man. And I discovered this party, if the sun sets you free, you're free indeed. So I feel free. So I knew that some of the girlfriends who were not happy, they were trying to hurt me or do some things. But I just know that even if they hurt me and I die, which was going to be ultimate, what's important is I am free.
Yeah. All right, this is wonderful. I want us to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll come to understand how the university life to transcending into a man in the universe he is now happened.
Thank you.
We live in a world where all the things we face are of no news. That is to say, there is nothing new you're going through that someone hasn't gone through before. Which means all our circumstances are answerable. So we ask, is there something bothering you that you need answers to? Situations you think you can be removed from? No sober motivations to get you started? This is why we bring you Untold Stories. Stories that mean that I've been eating all this while. Together with our guests, we wish to let out the stories we know are similar to yours and showing ways they can be overcome. Log in to Facebook and YouTube every Thursday at 8 p.m. on Reality Lab TV as we delve proper into these stories we are certain can spur you up to full actualization. Discover yourself now. Reality Lab TV, your journey to self-discovery.
And this is the Reality Lab talk show, episode 4 of Untold Stories. And we have been with Mr. William Yanda Conte, who has been talking with us about his life story. And now we want to transcend to your university life. We read earlier that you schooled at Frabe College, University of Sierra Leone, and you studied linguistics and later you did law. Tell us about the journey through your academic struggle.
First of all,
university.
I was supposed to enter university in 2006, because I spent the whole 2005 taking these exams and managing this transition from being born again now, from being unbeliever to born again and all that. So I dedicated only 2005 for just taking the exams because there was a lot of phobia around us. So 2006 I was going to apply, but I had no money to go to the college, first thing. Two, I had friends who were in college year 1, year 2 who started talking to me about white and black. And they presented it so nicely that it's a rosy thing. So I also have to make a decision. Do I apply without money? Because, of course, if you apply, you need to pay fees. And I don't have money. And I wanted to be educated. Then 2, these friends are marketing these things, which I eventually discovered that it's not a club as it presented it. It's far much more than that. But because now I have Jesus, I began to learn about faith, taking steps of faith. I remember the first money I took to buy the form, somebody gave me, my discipler gave me money to buy bread, and I was saving that money, and I bought it. It was not much that time. I can't remember whether 20 or 30,000 at that time. And I bought the form. The amazing part, I was shortlisted, and in the list of 20 or 50 people, I can't remember, my name was 5 or so because of my combination. Because what I did was, I had 2 good results, so I chose the best of all. And I was an art student. So I placed them in an order that you know that this guy is here for business. And I was at the interview when I was called at the interview. And there was no question other than the man asking me,
okay,
you are so qualified. How are you going to pay your fees? And I said, that is what I have not figured at the moment. I said, but the first thing is, let me first be admitted and get my acceptance letter. So I tried to recognize the face of this man. I spoke to him before coming here. He said, let me don't mention his name. So I will not mention his name. So I visited him. I scouted for him in campus. I met him. And I offered a deal to him that I want to be educated. I want to do this course, but I don't have money. Can I make an undertaking to be your slave in your house so that you pay my fees? And when I finish, you can tell me a number of years I can work for you.
Wow.
And he was staring at me. Whenever I say this part, I feel like crying a little bit. And he agreed. And I signed. But I didn't know he was only doing it to test my sincerity.
Before you said.
Yes. So I signed. But I realized I was not being treated as a slave. I don't work for him. He will pay my fees. He will give me lunch. And I will make sure that I study. I have a test paper. I pass. I show him the script. And he's very excited. So to cut a long story short, I finished the first degree up to third year. And I asked him, I'm coming to third year now. Start to tell me how many years I will serve you as a slave when I finish. And his wife and I smiled at me and said to me, we never consider you as a slave. We saw you as our son.
Wow.
He said, while we signed the commitment, we wanted to know whether you are sincere with what you're doing. Now, what that taught me was that, and then I joined Slefis FBC, BSU. I joined the same year I become a cell leader. The second year, I become mission secretary.
Okay.
The third year, I became mission secretary. The same third year, the national conference, I become Bible study coordinator. And what I discovered in my life pattern is, wherever I go, I must give you some leadership position. And I don't know how that's happening. So I joined, and I also, of course, the Bible study at that time, so many teachings, so many fellowship and all that. For not many people know this part of the story. And that family become my family to date.
Wow.
In fact, eventually the wife was studying at the same department I was helping and all this kind of thing, and they become my friends. So that's for FBC.
Yeah.
And some of the teachers who taught me at Rokel School were students at their final year when I came.
Okay.
And they were members of either white or black camp. And they were campaigning. They thought they could talk to me like they're one of their school people. But the thing that God helped me to do was to have a defined roadmap for my life. And that's very good as young people. If you have a roadmap of your life, it helps you making your decisions. I was born to tell you what I can and cannot do, with respect and the utmost candor. So I communicated to them, and God has given me a humorous way of dodging people. What I will not do without you feeling offended. Say, oh, come and join black and come and join white. That's okay, fine. If the black and white need me at the same time, then let's take it that I'm black and white at the same time. So no need for procedure again. That was
about it then.
And then in the course of the study came another challenge, wherein some tutors, some are dead now, some are still there, thought that I have to be victimized because of my Christian beliefs. I went through that one. That's why when I talk to young people now, I tell them there's nothing new you are telling me that somebody has not gone through or experienced. So relying on your current ordeal or predicament to hinder your potential is one of the failure theories I've ever heard. What I know is these challenges we have, Jesus said, tribulations we'll have in this world. They will always be there. But what makes you a defined person and an extraordinary person is your resolve and resilience to press against odds and conquer yourself and conquer those things. And you look back and say, thank God that I went through this once.
All right, so what was the next step after finishing your first degree?
First of all, my colleagues were telling me, if you read linguistics, you don't have a job. This thing is not marketable. I know this theory still floats around. But one thing I've come to realize is this. One, competence and destiny. If you are destined for a career and you are bound to succeed there, even if 1 million people do that course, you'll be the one established. In fact, by a matter of fact, all the jobs I have had as project coordinator in 2010, 2012, at Youth for Christ, between 2012, 2013, 14 as National Director of African Network of Good Shepherd, and as CEO of Slefis, I'm using my linguistics degree. My law degree, I've not even started using it. Again, I want to let you know that I also learned to fail. I have failed exams before. I have failed by exams twice.
After reading your law degree?
Yes, I went to law school, I failed once. I went again, I failed.
All right, so basically, during your roadmap in reading law in Forbes College, was it the same experience that you had the past 4 years of studying, as in the white and
no, it changed now. In fact, my first four years learning linguistics, I was resident. I had that privilege. I think we were the last set that had that golden opportunity to live on campus. And that's also a different ball game. You know, you are beginning to live on your own, in your room, you have your own key, and the family I was with where influential people, I don't want to talk their position so that people will not point fingers at them. So I always have a room with other people. So that's another one. And so I have the opportunity to hear when people are being initiated to these clubs.
Okay.
I have the privilege to also help some of them recover from the skirmishes and the injuries sustained out of this thing. And I also have the opportunity to share the gospel. And I also have the opportunity to begin to think further. I use my mind for much more than any other part of my body. I think a lot. I'm driving, I'm thinking. I'm sleeping, I'm thinking. What can I do? So I keep having a clear path of where I want to go and what I need to do.
So how was the law degree like? How was the law? Before entering university, did you have the idea that I want to read law? I
always wanted to be a lawyer.
You wanted to be a lawyer.
But I remember I had a mentor. I went for a vacation Bible school called, if I was a lawyer now, James Momodu Fonasisi. And the theme of the vacation Bible school was the role model. And the topic he handled, the role model and law. And this is a very matured man who came and spoke to us that if you want to be a successful lawyer, go and read English first. And he was talking to this teenager sitting there. And I listened. And I came close to him and I talked to him that I'll promise you I'll follow what he taught me. And today he is my mentor.
Wow.
In fact, when I was taking my bio exams, he already secured a place for me in his chambers. And that's where the current board chair of the Slefis organization is. He works there.
Okay. Wow.
And I still relate with him.
Okay.
In fact, he has still told me that, look, failing the bio exam does not mean you're failed. Go for something else. I'm talking to him. I have enrolled for a master's in global leadership that will last for 2 years. And I still have enough zeal to go again for the bio exam. I don't take no for an answer.
How does it feel? I believe a lot of young people don't take failure as a pushing step or as a testing period. Don't take failure as something that I will try again. It's just I went wrong somewhere and I will. How does it feel to sit the bio exam twice and you are failed? And how does it feel?
First of all, Christ made the difference. People fail it once and they're depressed. People fail it twice and they're off goal. Christ makes the difference. Christ gives me an assurance. All the successful people I have seen in Bible history failed. All the successful people I have seen in life history failed. So failure for me is two things. Either God is telling me my time has not yet come, wait. Because sometimes we want to run faster than our timelines. And God knowing everything, and somebody is telling me that I'm justifying failure. No, I'm not. I'm only letting you know that failing, now I know the law. What I don't have is a certificate to practice the law. If I go again, I'm not going as a beginner. So what failure does is to accumulate knowledge over a period of time. The certificate is just to let you know that now you can proceed. And by the time I hope to get to the practice, if at all, I mean, my output may be different compared to somebody who tried it once and passed.
Of course.
Okay?
Of course.
Then two, I don't see failure as a deterrent to success. I see it as a training for greater opportunities. Remember, there's a story I love when David faced Goliath. When he saw Goliath, he said, when I see you like the sheep and the flock who came after my flock, and how I chased them, open their mouth and rescue my flock. You must have an experience of dealing with failure or challenges in life so that you can be in a better platform to talk to somebody else how to conquer. If I had not failed, how would I be talking to you about failure today? Paul said, an angel of Satan buffeted me 3 times. I prayed to the Lord. The Lord said, my grace is sufficient. So the sufficiency of grace in my life has not even made me have bitterness for any tutor. I have many things I could have asked and challenged. I refused to. I take it that the school said I fail and I fail full stop. In fact, the second one, I had one reference. And I studied for 3 weeks. And I passed 10 out of 11 subjects. I spent 3 weeks reading for one subject and law school said I fail. It's a failure. So, and that's what it does. And also what I want people to think about young people. Don't limit yourself by what you always want to be. There's what I call the low-hanging fruits. God may be calling you something else and you're passionate about something else. I've seen people hitting their face on the wall repeatedly and they're not making progress. And they're stagnated because they cannot look behind. When God was telling Lot's wife not to turn her back to look, if she does, they will become pillar of salt. The place where they ought not to be seen, Abraham was standing on the opposite direction looking at this place conveniently. There are things that cannot work for you, Daniel. They can work for me. So what I have to do, look inside, what I can do. I discover a passion and a calling to serve God in the ministry as a professional. And I develop that as a career. And I'm making commercial value out of it. While law is still being prepared, Liberians will say dry meat is sweet, but what can you be eating till the meat is dry?
Wow. So, would you want to say that in a case wherein somebody might be pursuing for a medical degree and have been failing over and over, there's a chance that he or she should look back and see what else he or she can do, as that particular journey will be waiting, or he will be trying? I don't know if you understand me.
First of all, let's look at failure. You should be able to do a retrospection of what caused me to fail. There are failure out of negligence. There are failure out of priority. You misplace your priorities. There are failure out of incompetence, because certainly our brain output has to be trained to handle certain things. If you take me to the science field, I will be like a dummy. I will take donkey years to survive it. But my brother is a medical doctor. As one of the youngest, one of the young bright doctors in this country. He is a fellow. He got certificate in the US, so he can practice in the US and here. He has that competence. But I have my own competence. I cannot try. But what do? We complement for each other. So first of all, try to know what you are caught out for. Then what you're doing, if you're not caught up into it, you cannot excel in it.
Of course.
And you should be able to evaluate yourself year in, year out, time in, time out, to know, am I on course? Am I making progress? The reason why I still have the courage that I failed law school and I'm going again, because apart from having a certificate, I acquired the knowledge. Hello? Some people fail, they don't even know a word in the content where they fail. So that's a capital I have. That's one thing. Another thing also, it could be, yes, as you said, that maybe God is calling you to something else. Joseph had a dream to become prime minister, to lead the children of Israel. Not so? In Egypt.
Of course.
I'm sure Joseph was expected to form a political party and contest an election. So when he began to see himself in the pit, he began to see himself in slavery, he began to see himself in prison. Humanly speaking, if you were in his position, you will say, oh, my political career has ended. I cannot be anymore. Not be so? And somebody assured him that if you make me come out, when he interpreted the dream, I will remember it, the person forget about him. As that terminated his destiny, he came back and still governed.
All right. So I want to take you back now to the final part of your story. I want us to expatiate on your family life. When did you start thinking about family, about having a wife and?
I started thinking about my family when I was with my mom and my father. With all respect to them, I love them, I appreciate their life. But when I was growing up, I saw things in my family setup that I always wanted to change. And my mother and my father were sincere at that time, but they were sincerely wrong. But because I can't change what make that family setting where I find myself, there was this charge in me that if I have the opportunity, I will make things differently. So that's the first thing. The second thing, I also realized that the dream I have in terms of continuing providing leadership for young people, for the world, for my nation, I need to have stability in my natural feelings. Because sex is a natural feeling. God gave it to us. I didn't go to shop and buy it. So my feeling for my wife now, or my feeling for women generally then, is a natural feeling. The only challenge is when I follow the direction of my erection and commit sin. That's where the problem comes. So I wanted to close that gap. And for me, family is a project. It must be closed. You never can tell the impact and relevance of a family until you have one. Because the first checkmate you have in your life, apart from the Holy Spirit and God and your pastor, is your wife. They can be critical about you, can be bold about you. So I wanted to close that one. Two, the way I was growing, it got to a point after going to my law school, to my law degree. That's one, so I'll tell you the miracle. I never had money. Somebody introduced me to somebody in the US who sponsored me throughout my time, up to the second time I failed at law school. I never paid a dime. So the way I was...
You was doing your law degree.
Yes.
You got your wife?
Yeah, no, in fact, when I was doing my first degree, I met my wife at the third year.
Okay.
And we became friends. And we got married the following year in 2011, April 30, when Sierra Leone became 50 years old as independence-wise. Okay? So I got married. At that time, it was a tough decision. My mother think that I was too young to get married. But when I wanted to close was a gap. I wanted to close a gap because I was against straying again. You know, when you have, say, once beaten, twice shy. I've wandered away in sin. I know how sin can be deadly and treacherous and dangerous and destructive. I don't want to go into that. And as a young man, growing with all these skills and potential, I realized that I could stray again. So it's need to have a stopgap. And my wife came in, and I got married, and she's the best wife I could ever have. Wow. The most beautiful lady in the world. And then I had a defined plan of how many children. Everything about me is organized. Even though some of my plans I have to drop them in compromise for what God wants me to do. Okay? And she was one who even encouraged me to resign the job I had with Good Shepherd to come and take up the job with Slurpees. When we pray, we realize that apart from the inputs and all the benefits I've been making for other organizations, Slurpees, which is my alumni, needed help. And I opted myself, and I'm there.
Wow. This is great. So I want to ask you two final questions. Firstly, who is your mentor?
Steve Phillips, the guy who is having for 4 years, is still in the US. He's still my mentor.
Wow. And
I still go to him. Wow. And I'm so honest with him that if I commit sin today, I'll write him an email, I've done this. Okay. And I'm ready for his reproof. He's an old man now. He visited me some 2 years ago. Very old man now, and I still owe it to him. His wife too is Patricia. That is one. Two, I have other people who don't even know that I follow them. For example, President Obama is one of the people I love, and George Bush. I love George Bush for one thing. He does what he wants to do, whether you like it or not. And I want to be that kind of person. If I decide...
I think we'll compare him to Donald Trump.
No, it's not.
He's not?
No. Bush is better off.
Okay.
Bush has a functional acumen. Okay. His mental output is rational. Trump is obsessed. Trump has a true combination that no man can have and live a normal life. He's rich and he has power. Those combinations are dangerous combinations. You have the two powers in your hand. So what can you tell me? That's the situation he's struggling with. He's struggling with a character conflict of himself.
Who is your mentor?
Steve Phillips, this old American guy. I remember we were eating cassava leaf, boiled cassava, give them. That guy is so selfless. That's why a few weeks ago I was in the provinces. I sleep in a hut where there was a tortoise tied its leg on the bed. There were lizards flowing in the room. There were cockroaches, mosquitoes used the room as a base. And the Lord gave his beloved sleep. Because I have learned to live in this kind of circumstance. He's one of my mentors. Politically, I have a political ambition. And I'm developing my political career already. That's why I even try not to break traffic rules. My wife will tell you that even to drive along the street, I'm very careful. My family is policed in a way that they know what to do, so that, but for their conduct, I will not dent my political image. And I have a firm conviction and aspiration to contest for the highest office of the land. Wow. And I will ask you to put that on record, and you see it happen in your lifetime.
We'll wait. All right. So, as I said, you mentioned that you have acquired leadership positions in your life, and of course your aspiration to become a leader in time to come. And I believe leaders are readers. So what would you say about your all-time best books?
If I knew you were going to ask me that question, I would have thought about it. I read everything. I'm in a host number of, I think, 200 or 100 more groups. I just read. Some people write nonsense, I read. But I realize anything I read, I acquire either one new vocabulary, one new phrase. Because I studied semantics, meaning, and also syntax, how to construct sentences. So I tend to upgrade my writing skills, my reading skills by reading other people. So I see the way you organize your sentences, so I also develop myself through that. And what I found beneficial is when I work at Slurpees, I realize I'm dealing with students of different caliber, different disciplines. So if I'm only stricto sensu limited to law or linguistics, I'll be very useless to the engineering and agric students. And mentoring students, discipling students, working in the student ministry, it goes beyond knowing the Bible. Because you are also dealing with the future minds of the country and the world. So your acumen should improve. The day you stop to read, the day you begin to die. And you don't want to lose relevance in your functions. So that's why I could hardly tell you. In my bag now I have 3 books. I realized there was a time I have a small traffic, I'll stop, I'll take something, I begin to read. Sometimes somebody has to tap me. The traffic is moving, and I put the thing and continue. That's how I read. So I read a lot.
Okay. All right. So finally, I learned that you're a man who travels a lot.
Yes.
So how do you? I learned that people love traveling and love adventure. So how has it been, you traveling around a lot of
First of all, when you should travel, overseas travel.
Yeah.
Okay. My nightmare is to always get on the plane.
But you like doing it?
Because that's what duty calls for.
All right.
The reason is, if you're in a flight, if I'm driving a car, I can see another car passing, you see somebody standing by, you see a ground, you see something in front of you. In the flight, you don't even know who is taking you where. You're just there. And in February this year, I was flying from Lome to Abuja, and the Lord saved us from a plane crash.
Wow.
We are on the track, the runway to take off. And the moment the flight started taking off, and the pilot announced to that he discovered a technical itch and he has to do a forced landing again. So I was thinking, if that technical itch happened in the sky when we are in the sky, and by the time we find a landing, maybe, Father forbid, the plane would have crashed. Yes, the only challenge I have is I miss my wife a lot, I miss my kids a lot when I travel. But technology has helped me to compensate a lot of video calls to talk to them. And also, what keeps me traveling when the opportunities come is the impact you make. For example, this saga in Lebanon. I have a friend in Lebanon who I'm mentoring. If I gave me his country's flag, is in my office. Yesterday I took a picture of it, I put it on my status, and I share with him that I'm standing with him in solidarity in what they're going through. And when you get feedback from people like from Chile, from Barbados, from Guyana, from Lebanon, from the US, from UK, from Malaysia, from Singapore, from India, from South Africa, from Tanzania, from Nairobi, all over the world, giving you feedback. If I'm working with a young guy right now in Eswatini, formerly Swaziland, now it's called Eswatini. The king woke up one morning and changed the name. So this young man is just a graduate, and his general secretary asked that let me work with him to mentor him. And when I see him grow and I reach out to him, you realize that it's worth to risk your life. I've had terrible experience. There was a time I was exhausted here. I regularly suffer from fatigue syndrome because of my traveling pattern, either locally or not. That sometimes my body just gets freeze and I just lie there as if I'm dead. After some time I recover, I start running again. I had a hectic week running around in Freetown. My flight was in the afternoon. I boarded at the flight at Lungi Airport, and I sent an email in Addis Ababa that I'm coming on 2018. And when I arrived there, I was at the immigration, and that's what I was told as I collapsed. I just woke up, I saw myself in emergency in Addis Ababa, be resuscitated. And I came out again, I attended the meeting, and I was there full time till I come back.
Wow.
One of the doctors told me, young man, slow down. And it's difficult to slow down. I left last year, October. I was in India for 2.5 months. I came to Singapore, I came to Nairobi, and I came to Ghana. And in Ghana, I asked my wife and the boys to come and join me there. And before they came, I had an issue, and I also admitted. The doctor said, I've examined everything. By the reading of your organs, you can live long. But all I know is you have too much adrenaline, you're working too much, you need to slow down. And when he's talking about work, he's not moving up and down. Even when I sit in one place, my brain works.
Think. Okay, so I want you to look at the camera, and as we have discussed about youthfulness, what would be your advice to young people with your life and what you have seen around so far? What would you tell young people out there?
My friends, on the 27th of July 2020, I celebrated my 39th birthday. I'm 39 years old. I may have come out of the legal definition of a youth, but I still feel like you. I understand you, and I know you, what you're going through, even without you telling me. My story cannot be different from your own story. But what I can tell you, you can make your own story to bring God's glory in your life. You can begin today. It doesn't matter if you have tried before and failed. And if your failure has determined your name, you can still try today again. But I would just want to recommend the best way to try is to try with Jesus. I have evidently proven that if I try with Jesus, it may delay, but sure. I read in Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 3 that all the plans God have for me, they might be slow, but they are sure to come to pass. As a young person, get up the excuse zone, cut off some friends, take a decision. I tell people every young person in this country is a leader. If you are not leading anybody, but you are leading your own life. Start leading by the decisions you make. Your future is possible, and it's always possible, because before you even conceive, God has a plan for you, and you can make it happen.
Wow.
Thank you that you have the privilege. I have the privilege to share my ugly story, and I hope you are inspired, and I hope to see you again. Love you. Bye. Take care.
Wow, this is wonderful, and we have been speaking to the CEO of the Slefi Sierra Leone, Mr. William Yande Conte, and it has been a blessing, and I believe you have been blessed. We'll try to have him back with the responses that we read. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page and to like and follow us on Facebook. I've been your host, Daniel Jonathan Bango, and this is Reality Lab TV. God bless you. See you next week.
We live in a world where all the things we face are of no news. That is to say, there is nothing new you're going through that someone hasn't gone through before, which means all our circumstances are answerable. So we ask, is there something bothering you that you need answers to? Situations you think you can be removed from? No sober motivations to get you started? This is why we bring you Untold Stories. Stories of men that have been hidden all this while. Together with our guests, we wish to let out the stories we know are similar to yours and showing ways they can be overcome. Log in to Facebook and YouTube every Thursday at 8 p.m. on Reality Lab TV as we delve proper into these stories we are certain can spur you up to full actualization. Discover yourself now. Reality Lab TV, your journey to self-discovery.